I think once upon a time I said that the trouble with weather forecasting is that it's right too often for us to ignore it, but it's wrong too often for us to rely on it. And I suppose that brings us to the prediction business, because you write a lot about that in your book. And really, the prediction business is fundamentally mediocre.
Yeah, my favorite part of the book was when I had to write down my thoughts about something that has always bothered me, and that is, why is everybody so bad at predicting the future? If you have a half a brain and you're involved in this for more than a year and you're thinking about what is going on, you're going to have a sense that these prognosticators are terrible. And it's not any one. You can't sit around and say, oh, these day traders who try to pick stocks, they're terrible. Well, it's true. But professionals who try to pick stocks are terrible. We do studies every year on this. 90% of active fund managers underperform their benchmarks over a 10-year period. 90%. The professionals are terrible. Then analysts are terrible at picking prices on stocks a year from now. Strategists, high level, Morgan Stanley, Goldman, terrible. Here's the worst one. The Federal Reserve has a terrible track record of predicting the U.S. economy even 1 year from now. How is this possible? These people, the Federal Reserve in theory, have the best people on earth. They can't get this? And it turns out, again, there's a whole chapter about this because it made me nuts for years and years. There's two problems. The first problem is that predictions are riddled with these biases and noise that I talked about. The behavioral economics problems are the same that you have in the prediction business, and that those biases limit the quality of the predictions. So that's one, and I give a lot of examples of that. The other problem is a sheer informational problem. There is a lack of complete information because the events occur that are unpredictable and that can affect the outcome. So just think about this. Just make something simple up. You're a Caterpillar analyst, and your job is to predict the price of Caterpillar 1 year from now. So you think, how hard is that? It's just Caterpillar, right? And you have an estimate on earnings. And it turns out there are literally thousands of things that can affect this in the next year. It's December, you got to predict Caterpillar's price. December of next year, the CEO could get up and leave, could become ill. We could have some new giant competitor in. China economy could fall apart. It's 40% of revenues for Caterpillar. It turns out when you start adding in the factors that can affect the stock price, it's so big that it dramatically increases the scope for your forecast to go wrong. And so you combine the behavioral economic problems with the lack of complete information, and the prediction business becomes very difficult in general. Now, there are efforts to improve the quality of predictions that have been going on. There's a wonderful fellow named Philip Tetlock at the University of Pennsylvania, and he has a wonderful one. I encourage you to look it up, called the Good Judgment Project, where he actually tries to train people to think more critically and think in a broader way. And I'd highly commend that. But I have to deal with the facts on the ground. And the fact is, when you see this and you understand everybody's lousy at the prediction business, this makes you very humble about going around making predictions of your own, number one, and number two, relying on other people's predictions. This gives another boost to the indexing crowd that say, this is a stupid thing. You trying to guess or relying on somebody else to guess where Caterpillar is going to be a year from now is a ridiculous quest. You should give it up and just have a long-term plan and stick with the market. So that was my favorite part of the book, because I think that's the absolute key. When people ask me for investment advice, I'm not an investment advisor. I'm telling you what I've learned for 33 years. And one of the key things I've learned is you think you can predict things, you can't. So be more humble about that. I'm not saying don't look. I read predictions all the time, but I have much less weight to them than I did 20 years ago.